Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing an Ojama deck. So I'm really excited for this one because this deck is actually a really crazy deck that at first glance you'd look at this deck and go, oh man, that's playing a 0 attack point vanilla monster? Ew, I'm not going to play that. That deck looks as bad as the Ojama Yellow does. But it's really not. I guarantee you this deck is actually insane and can summon out some really powerful monsters and lock your opponent down to where they can't even play Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is really crazy about saying a deck about Ojamas being able to do that, but it really works. I'm really excited to show you guys this. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have some awesome rewards you guys, like getting a description for every single video, getting a signed card in the mail, or even getting to rest deck profile just like this one every single month that you're a patron, along with test hands. So, without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Ojama Yellow. The Ojama brothers, you just need to play 2 of each of them. So you play 2 copies of Ojama Yellow, 2 copies of Ojama Green, and 2 copies of Ojama Black. All of them have the same exact flavor text, which is he is one of the Ojama trio. It's said that he butts in by any means necessary. It's also said that when the 3 are together, something happens, which is kind of interesting. All of them share that exact same flavor text as you can see, which is really interesting. And they're very old cards. They actually came out in like Invasion of Chaos and Dark Crisis, which is really old packs. We then play 3 copies of Ojama Red. Ojama Red is really good in this deck because when this card is normal summon, you can special summon up to 4 Ojama monsters in your hand in attack position. So you special summon literally as many Ojamas as pretty much as possible from your hand, which is really good to get those Ojamas out on your side of the field to start linking to fusion summon with. You're leaning a little bit more towards the fusion plays in this particular build, which is really cool to be able to lock your opponent down. But it's really good to play this card at least 3. You got to play this card at 3. This card is ridiculous at 3. Because just normal summoning, like resolving Oja Magic on your turn, and then once you resolve the Oja Magic and adding each copy of a green, yellow, and black from your deck to your hand, and then normal summoning out red to be able to special summon all of them, and then link summoning into an access code talker. Yeah, that's pretty nuts. Or going into 2 rank 2 plays. I mean, that's really good. 1 copy of Ojama Blue. I actually bumped Ojama Blue down to 1 in this particular build. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you get to add 2 Ojama cards from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good, but it has to be destroyed by battle, which kind of sucks. But playing this card as at least 1 is optimal because there is plays where you can get this card destroyed by battle. And it's not bad to have it as an additional name. We then play 3 copies of Rescue Cat. Rescue Cat's really good because you can send this card, face-up card on the field to the graveyard to special summon up to 2 level 3 or lower beast monsters from your deck to your side of the field, but destroy them during the end phase, which gets you a Link 2 play, which gets you a any other play that you particularly need, which is super helpful. 1 copy of Armed Dragon level 3. Armed Dragon level 3 is super helpful in the deck too, because this card during your stamina phase you can upgrade it, but the card that works with this card is Oja Match, which is really a helpful card in this particular deck to get you into some really crazy plays, to be able to get you an additional normal summon and stuff like that, and it searches it directly out of the deck. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom just stops your opponent from doing stuff, which is why you want to play this card at 3 in the deck, which is super helpful to be able to get those additional plays off, and is why you really want to play this card as a 3 of in the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is really helpful in the deck because it helps you search out your copy of your field spells like Ojama Country or your copy of Fusion Recycling Plant, which is really nice to be able to grab those out of the deck for additional plays. 1 copy of Ultra Polymerization. Ultra Polymerization is a kind of a neat card in this deck because you pay 2,000 life points to fusion summon an Ojama monster from your extra deck, which is what you're always going to fusion summon either into King or into your copy of Ojama Knight. Ojama Knight and Ojama King are the 2 that you're always going to want to summon in this deck to be able to lock your opponent's monster card zones down. I will mention, you guys, you're always going to want to go first in this deck because that's how this deck kind of revolves around. But you can go off going second. But Ultra Polymerization is really helpful because this card can let you revive at the cost of 2,000 life points all the monsters that you've used to fusion summon the monster that you just summoned. So if you get off a copy of like Ojama Red and you special summon all your monsters on your side of the field, you can use Ultra Polymerization to go for Ojama King, and then revive all of your Ojamas back to your side of the field, and then use a copy of like Polymerization to summon out another copy of Ojama King, or summon out a copy of Ojama Knight, and then make a Link 2 play, or a XYZ play, which is really, really, really good. It's just an overall really good card as a one-of, at least in this deck. We then play a single copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion comes in kind of handy sometimes. You can change it out for Called by the Grave if you want to. But I usually use this card to summon out my copy of the Ojama Knight, because it gets me an additional monster on my side of the field that's an Ojama monster that I can then use to summon another Ojama Knight if I want to, which is what's really, really, really helpful about this deck, to be able to get those monsters out on your side of the field as quickly as possible, or use it as additional link material. We play a single copy of Fusion Recycling Plant. Fusion Recycling Plant is really nice because it lets you discard a card to add a Polymerization from your deck to your hand, deck or graveyard to your hand, and then once per turn during your end phase, you can target one monster in your graveyard that was used as a fusion material for a fusion summon and add it to your hand, which is pretty nice to be able to just recover your plays. Let me play 3 of the best card in the entire deck, which is Ojama. Ojama is really good because if this card is sent from the hand or the field to the graveyard, you add 1 each of green, yellow, and black Ojama from your deck to your hand. And this is a mandatory effect, so regardless of how it's sent to the graveyard, this card goes off, which is insane. We play 3 copies of Ojama. Ojama is really good in the deck too, because this card lets you send an Ojama card, which could be your copy of Ojama, which is hopefully what you're sending, to the graveyard to add from your deck to your hand 1 Ojama monster with a different name and 1 Armed Dragon monster from your deck or graveyard, and then you immediately have this card results, normal summon 1 of those monsters, and then during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 3 of your banished Ojama monsters, shuffle them into the deck, and then you get to draw a card, which is pretty good to be able to just dig into the deck even deeper. We then play 3 copies of Ojama Country. Ojama Country is really good in this deck too. Ojama Country is like one of the reasons I wanted to play this, and there's even a total meme that's been like made off of this card with Ojama Lime right there, which needs to be a card eventually. If once per turn you can send 1 Ojama card from your hand to the graveyard to special summon an Ojama monster from your graveyard, and then while this card's face on the field, you switch the original attack of all Ojama monsters with their defense, so they all become 1,000 attack points, 0 defense monsters, which is kind of neat. But overall, it's a really good card to be able to send Ojama from your hand to the graveyard to get you additional plays, and special summon an Ojama monster back from the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of Polymerization, because it's really pivotal to be able to draw into Polymerization in this deck to get into so many different plays in this particular build, like getting your copy of Ojama King or Ojama Knight. We then play 3 copies of Ground Collapse, which I'm not surprised if you guys have never heard of this card, which this card with an Ojama King essentially makes it so your opponent cannot play Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. Basically, you select 2 monster zones your opponent controls, and they can't use them. Period. As long as this card's face up on the field. That's all it does. And with Ojama King picks 3 zones, and if you do 3 plus 2, that equals 5. So that means they can't summon at all any monsters to their side of the field. They can only rely on spells and traps. So Ground Collapse plus Ojama King is a game and set, which is pretty cool to be able to just activate this old card that came out of Pharaoh's Servant, out of like the 5th pack or 4th pack of the entire series, and you can just use this with Ojama King and be able to just stop your opponent from playing any monsters at all. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance, because you don't really need a lot of monsters in the extra deck, but there's a couple of monsters that you really do need, like your copy of Ojama King and your copies of your Ojama Knights. Those are pretty pivotal to the deck, but banishing 6, you're probably not gonna hit them. But if you do, you probably won't hit all 3. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing just a single trap. Ojama is like, hey, trying to fight me over there. We're just playing a single trap, which is a single copy of the Ojama Pajama. Ojama Pajama is pretty good. You gotta play it just for the name. What this card does is if an Armed Dragon monster or a Light Machine Fusion monster, which we don't play any Light Machine monster you control, will be destroyed by a battle or by a card effect, you can banish an Ojama card from your hand, face them from your field, or graveyard instead. And then you can only activate each of the following effects of Ojama Pajama once per turn, which is the effect. The number 1 effect is what we're always going to want to activate. During your main phase, you can add an Ojama card from your deck to your hand, then you discard a card, which can be your Ojama, which then get you your copies of your Ojama Yellow, Green, and Black from your deck to your hand, which is pretty cool. And if this card card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon as many of your banished Ojama's monsters as possible, which is pretty good too. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Ojama King. Ojama King is really pivotal to the deck, and why you want to play this card as a 3-up is because it has the ability that you can select up to 3 monster zones that your opponent controls, and as long as the card remains face on the field, these selected zones cannot be used. That's all it does. It locks down zones so your opponent can't do anything. We then play 3 copies of Ojama Knight. Ojama Knight targets 2 zones your opponent controls and makes it so they can't use them either while this card's face up on the field, which is pretty good. I mean, it's really good to be able to lock your opponent down with these 2 cards, and then plus with Ojama Country, it flips their attack and defense, so this becomes 3,000 and this becomes 2,500, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of Ojama Emperor. Ojama Emperor is pretty good in the deck too. I just play it as one of, I'm not really concerned if it does get banished. What this card does is, well, Ojama Country is in your field spell zone. This card's attack becomes 3,000 and it cannot be destroyed by card effects, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from attacks on this card instead. And you can target 1 non-link Ojama monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And also for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for fusion monsters, which is not that big of a deal because mainly we're trying to summon these anyways. You're not going to super summon all of the link monsters and Xyz monsters that you've got in the extra deck anyways. So for the other monsters that we're playing in the deck, we're playing a single copy of Access Code Talker. This could easily be dropped for any other monsters you want to play, because any of the link monsters you can pretty much interchange out with stuff like Anaconda and stuff like that if you want to, if you need to turbo out your fusion spells. I haven't had a problem with that in this particular build, getting out polymerization, but sometimes you will. I haven't noticed it, but you might. But you can drop Access Code Talker for Anaconda, you can drop for a Borreload, Borrelsword, anything that you particularly want. 1 copy of Appaloosa, same thing, you can drop this if you want to. I don't recommend it. Again, extravagance builds, you can play any of these cards that you want and any number you want. The ones that I mainly suggest is the ones across the top. 1 copy of Unicorn. Unicorn is good because it spins stuff back. Phoenix because it pops spells and traps, and IP Masquerena because it can help you with your Appaloosa, which is super helpful. We then play for the Xyz monsters. We play number 46, or number 64, excuse me. I'm dyslexic, that just kind of flipped on me. But number 64, because it can make a really big beat stick, which is super helpful for the deck by giving you a token, and also can help you link play as well. This is a card that I really would recommend that you play in this deck at least 2, because this card is really good if you're going to play the extravagance build. And then I play a single copy of Sky Cavalry. Sky Cavalry is a card that I've actually gotten to have a really good appreciation for, because this card can be destroyed by battle, and while it has XYZ materials, at the end of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can detach a material and then return that opponent's monster from the field into the extra deck, and it doesn't target, which is really good to be able to handle a lot of cards. This card is really, really helpful, and you can attack into something and then bounce it, which is pretty good. I mean, it's just an overall really, really good card. It is at least a 1-of. You can make the deck a little bit more budget if you want to, because you can just have to put 2 level 2 monsters in this deck. You can make it more budget if you want to by dropping out the links and playing more level 2 monsters, like your copy of Sky Cavalry. You can play 2 Sky Cavalry and Anaconda, 2 Anacondas, 2 Sky Cavalries, and then maybe an Appaloosa and the IP. And if you want to drop the access code in the Nightmare package, that's totally up to you. But I do recommend at the very least playing the number 64 and the Ojama package across the top. So that's it for this particular deck, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's a really, really fun deck to play around with. And overall, one of the craziest builds that I've made, because literally if you get these 2 monsters out on your side of the field, it's essentially a lock where your opponent can't summon any monsters, which is really hilarious. And you even have the way of going in with the Ground Collapse and the copy of the Ojama King. And even if you open up weak and you can't go into the Ojama King and you can go into the Ojama Knight, it locks it down where your opponent can only summon 1 monster and then their link zone, so they really only have 1 summon, which is pretty good as well. It can lock down a lot of decks, and a lot of decks just don't have a way to out it. Like, they just don't, because if you go first and you establish it where they can't establish that crazy board, it's over with. I mean, stuff like Adamantipator, you do this to them and they don't know how to handle it. I mean, this deck, I've literally gone into duels with Adamantipator with this deck, and they rage quit because they couldn't summon anything. So, anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.